At exactly 4:17 a.m. on January 5, 2026, the Krychev 6 base in eastern Belarus ceased to be a military installation and became a crater. A multi-billion-dollar battery of Oreshnik nuclear-capable missiles simply evaporated into a column of fire visible from space. The thermal event that consumed the facility wasn't an accident. It was the calculated result of a patience game played by Ukrainian intelligence. 10 mobile launchers, the sum total of Moscow's yearly production, had been gathered in one spot, and now they were nothing but molten slag. Just weeks prior, in late December 2025, the Kremlin had made a show of deploying the Oreshnik system to Belarus. Lukashenko had boasted on state television about the invincible shield protecting the western flank. It was intended as a strategic checkmate against NATO. But that deployment was a fatal error. Ukrainian satellite reconnaissance had been tracking the construction of specialized bunkers at Krychev 6 for months. They watched, they waited, and they let the Russians stockpile every single available launcher before making their move. How does a fortified base protected by the feared S-400 Triumph and layers of Panzer S-1 systems get deleted by 2 jets and a handful of drones? To understand the magnitude of this strike, we have to look at the physics of the target itself. The Oreshnik is not a standard missile. It is a 60-foot-long beast powered by solid-fuel rocket motors capable of Mach 10 re-entry speeds. Putin called it a wonder weapon that no Western air defense could intercept. But on the ground, it is just a fragile canister filled with highly volatile fuel. Solid rocket fuel is essentially a rubber-like compound mixed with oxidizers. Once it ignites, it doesn't just burn, it generates its own oxygen. You cannot put it out with water or foam. It burns until the fuel is gone, reaching temperatures that turn high-grade steel into liquid. The architects of this destruction were a pair of Ukrainian F-16 Block 72 Vipers and 10 long-range attack drones. This wasn't a brute force attack. It was a surgical dissection of the Russian air defense network using American tech and Ukrainian ingenuity. The first element of the strike package was the Wild Weasel. This F-16 wasn't there to kill the missiles directly. Its hardpoints were loaded with AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles, and more importantly, 2 ADM-160 MALDJ decoys. The second F-16 call-sign Sniper carried the Sledgehammer. Under its wings were 4 AGM-158 JASSMER cruise missiles. These stealthy killers carry a 1,000-pound penetrator warhead and have a range exceeding 600 miles, allowing the jet to fire from well within the safety of Ukrainian airspace. Supporting the jets were 10 modified Lyuty long-range UA-5s. These weren't the standard models. They had been upgraded with terrain-following radar and specialized electronic warfare pods, turning them into cheap copies of advanced cruise missiles. The operation began at 2 a.m., not with a roar of engines, but with the quiet launch of the drones from a hidden strip near Chernihiv. They were the pawns in this chess game sent ahead to wake up the Russian bear. The drones flew low, hugging the tree line at under 150 feet. Their mission was to simulate a massive incoming strike swarm. As they crossed the border, the Russian air defense network, the touted A2/AD bubble, roared to life. The 91N6E Big Bird acquisition radars of the S-400 battalions picked up the contacts. To the Russian operators, it looked like a saturation attack, but they were seeing exactly what the Ukrainians wanted them to see. At the same moment, the Wild Weasel F-16 released its MALDJ decoys from high altitude. These are programmable flying jammers that can mimic the radar signature of any aircraft. Tonight, they were pretending to be a squadron of F-15 Eagles. The screens inside the Russian command vehicles lit up with nightmares. They saw low-level drones and high-altitude heavy fighters. The S-400 automated systems prioritized the high-threat targets, the Ghost F-15S created by the MALDJs. The Russian commanders panicked. They authorized the launch of their precious 48 N6 missiles. These interceptors cost millions of dollars each, and they were being fired at disposable decoys and plywood drones. As the S-400 batteries emptied their magazines into the empty sky, they exposed their positions. Their radars were blasting on full power, acting as beacons in the electromagnetic spectrum. This was the moment the Sniper F-16 had been waiting for. From a launch point over 200 miles away, the pilot released the 4 JASSMER missiles. These weapons are designed to be invisible. Their angular, stealthy airframes reflect almost no radar energy, and they fly subsonic just feet above the ground. While the Russian Panzer S-1 crews were busy trying to shoot down the cheap LUT drones that had slipped past the S-400s, the JSMs were gliding silently through the chaos. The noise of the battle masked their approach completely. The Panzer systems designed for close-in defense were overwhelmed. Their radars were cluttered with debris from the decoy drones and false electronic signatures. They were looking for swarms, not 4 lonely missiles hugging the nap of the Earth. At Khrushchev 6, the Oreshnik launchers were parked in a tight formation near their hangars, a standard Russian practice that prioritized logistics over survivability. The crews assumed the S-400 umbrella made them untouchable. At 4:16 a.m., the first JASSM-ER popped up for its terminal dive. Its infrared seeker compared the target picture with its internal database. It identified the specific heat signature of the transporter erector launcher engines. The missile didn't just hit the truck, it struck the missile canister directly. The 1,000-pound penetrating warhead punched through the composite shell and detonated inside the solid fuel motor. The result was instantaneous and catastrophic. The solid fuel didn't detonate like high explosives, it deflagrated. A blinding white fireball erupted, expanding at thousands of feet per second. This was a thermal event of biblical proportions. The burning propellant reached temperatures exceeding 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The steel chassis of the launcher didn't just bend, it liquefied and flowed like water. But the real disaster was the proximity of the other launchers. The first explosion sent a shockwave and a spray of burning fuel across the entire parking apron. It was a chain reaction that no fire suppression system could stop. The second JASSM struck the ammunition bunker 30 seconds later. This structure, meant to house the nuclear warheads, though reportedly empty of fissile material at the time, contained the re-entry vehicles and guidance systems. The overpressure from the bunker blast flattened the surrounding support buildings. The shockwave was felt in towns 10 miles away. Windows shattered and car alarms wailed in a chorus of mechanical terror. Back at the airfield, the remaining 2 JSSMs found the reload vehicles. The precision was absolute. The Ukrainian mission planners had mapped every square inch of Khrushchev 6, and the missiles executed their programming without mercy. For the next 30 minutes, secondary explosions rocked the facility. As each Oreshnik missile cooked off, it added its own fuel to the inferno. The night sky over Belarus turned a hellish orange. The Russian soldiers manning the perimeter could do nothing but run. You cannot fight a fire that is fueled by oxidizers capable of pushing a warhead into space. The base was effectively erased from the map. The sheer economic scale of the loss is staggering. Each Oreshnik system is estimated to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to manufacture. Russia had lost an entire year's worth of strategic production in under an hour. But the psychological blow was even heavier. The Oreshnik was the boogeyman the weapon Putin used to threaten London and Berlin. Now the world saw it burning like a pile of trash in a Belarusian field. The invincible S-400 had failed to stop subsonic cruise missiles. The Panzer systems had been distracted by cheap drones. The entire Russian integrated air defense network had been dismantled by clever tactics and superior Western tech. This operation, dubbed 2 Jets, 10 Shadows by the planners in Kiev, revealed a critical weakness in the Russian war machine. They rely on heavy, expensive systems that are inflexible against dynamic, multi-layered attacks. The MALDJ decoys prove that electronic warfare is just as lethal as high explosives. By blinding the enemy and making them chase ghosts, Ukraine neutralized the numeric advantage of the Russian air defense. The JASSM-ER proved that distance is the ultimate armor. The F-16S never had to enter the Russian engagement zone. They acted as standoff snipers, delivering the killing blow from safety. And the drones. They were the sacrificial pawns that allowed the Queen to take the king. The LUT UAVs cost a fraction of a single S-400 interceptor missile. The economic exchange ratio was hilariously lopsided in Ukraine's favor. In the aftermath, satellite imagery showed the devastation. Where 10 pristine launchers had stood, there were now 10 scorched scars on the earth. The concrete had spalled and cracked from the intense heat. Moscow attempted to claim it was a technical incident involving fuel handling. But the pattern of the craters and the remnants of the JASSM fuselages told a different story to intelligence agencies around the world. The strategic implications are massive. Russia now has to decide whether to pull more air defense assets from the front lines in Ukraine to protect their rear in Belarus. Every S-400 moved to Krychev is one less S-400 protecting the trenches in Donbass. This creates gaps, and gaps are exactly what the Ukrainian Air Force hunts for. By striking deep, Ukraine forces Russia to stretch its defenses until they snap. Furthermore, the destruction of the Oreshnik stockpile removes a major escalation card from Putin's deck. He can no longer point to the battery in Belarus and threaten immediate strikes on European capitals. The battery is gone. The operation also highlighted the vulnerability of solid fuel missiles. While they are faster to launch than liquid fuel rockets, they are essentially massive bombs waiting for a spark. Parking them in the open was a display of arrogance that cost Russia dearly. The physics of the explosion at Krychev 6 also offer a grim lesson. The thermal event was so intense that it likely compromised the soil and groundwater in the area with toxic chemical residues from the rocket fuel. It is a poisoned wound in the Belarusian landscape. For the Ukrainian pilots and drone operators, it was a flawless execution of modern networked warfare. They integrated intelligence electronic warfare decoys and precision strike capabilities into a single symphony of destruction. They didn't just blow up some trucks. They dismantled the myth of Russian strategic invulnerability. They showed that even the most hyped wonder weapons are just targets if you know where to look and how to hit them. As dawn broke over Krychev 6 on January 5th, the fires were still smoldering. The once fearsome missile battery was a graveyard of twisted metal. It served as a smoking reminder that in 21st century warfare, being big and scary just makes you a bigger target. The F-16S were already back in their hardened shelters, refueled and rearmed. The drone operators were already planning the next mission. And the Russian generals were left staring at the ashes of their billion-dollar investment, wondering how a country with no navy and an improvised air force just checkmated them again. This is the reality of the war. It's not about who has the most missiles, it's about who uses them with the most intelligence. And on that cold January morning, the smart guys in blue and yellow proved that 2 jets and 10 shadows are worth more than a year of Kremlin propaganda. Bye for now.